I think to see human life in a cosmic perspective can help people to make sense of this life.
Most palliative care people have an interesting outlook. They have a medical outlook which they use on their ward rounds and so on. And they have a whole set of experiences which they don't talk about. And these were the end-of-life experiences. And so there's a sort of taboo in mentioning these things.
Watch TV now and you think it's all about changing my garden or changing my house or something like that, as if the limit of what we can do ends at the garden fence.
I think our society is enormously scared of aging and of death. Death is increasingly becoming pushed out. Death is part of life, it's part of God's provision for us, it's not to be feared. And the Christian insight is also that our bodily death is not the end. The resurrection of Jesus gives us the hope that there is a fullness of life beyond what we can see.
A proportion of people transit to a new reality. So one moment they're in the hospice, the next moment they're in another reality, back in the hospice again. Well, what is this reality like? And you won't be at all surprised when I tell you that it's like the near-death experience.
Modern medicine is able to resuscitate many people who, after their hearts have stopped beating and lungs have stopped breathing, would in the past have certainly died. But a number of people who've been resuscitated come back saying that while they were apparently dead, they had a series of experiences which convinced them that if they had not been brought back, they would have gone on to a new and richer life. If they were simply the product, say, of oxygen starvation or the drugs, you would expect them to be confused. But what is surprising about near-death experience is the clarity with which people report seeing from above how they were actually resuscitated. And interestingly, they're usually correct. A control group of people who were resuscitated without having a near-death experience were not able to describe how they were resuscitated. So it is really quite remarkable that people get these things right.
You must understand that death is not what we think it is, just the switching off. It's much wider than that. For example, Jung, at the time of his death, his favourite oak tree was struck by lightning. Nice one. If you're a Christian, you'll have read the Bible, and you'll know that at the time of Christ's death it was dark from the 3rd to the 6th hour. In other words, there are macro effects of that nature. We don't look for them. If you talk to people in hospitals, yes, bells do ring on their own, get mechanical malfunctions and so on at the time of death. So the actual dissolution of consciousness is something which is important if what the deathbed visions are, and the transiting to a new reality tells us about the actual dying process itself. And then you die.
Unless you can talk about it, you can't do anything with it. It just seems like a terrible theft of something precious, instead of seeing it as a life that has been a gift. And so thinking seriously about death is really important if you're going to make sense of life.
Those who have the experiences very frequently say they no longer have any fear of death. They often feel that they have been brought back for some, inverted commas, purpose, a more caring or socially responsible kind of job.
For the first 3 centuries, Christianity was not aligned with power and privilege and with the military. It was a non-violent, persecuted movement. The reason I think it survived was because of the resurrection.
Being a Christian doesn't insulate us from the pain and suffering of life. If anything, it perhaps draws us deeper into bonds of solidarity with other people who are suffering.
I would far rather talk about meeting with our own darkness and uncertainty inside ourselves and allowing that to be made vulnerable to Christ's own uncertainty on that cross, to his uncertainty in the Garden of Gethsemane, because he meets us there. The great question, why have you forsaken me? we're always asking why. Why do tragic things happen? Why do tiny babies 3 hours old die because they just can't be saved? Why are children starving in Africa? Why are we allowing this to happen? Why is suffering happening in my own family, among my own friends? It is this great why that really, when we talk about spirituality, that is what people are seeking to have not so much an answer to, because I think most people are too intelligent to want answers that are going to sort those kind of problems, but they want to connect with something, with someone who can totally identify with the question.